All right, let's talk about something that sounds pretty straightforward but is actually a real puzzle. Moving an employee from France to the US. It happens all the time, right? But getting their payroll right is a whole different story. So in this explainer, we're going to demystify the two main ways companies tackle this transatlantic challenge.
So, you've got a fantastic employee, and they're making the big move. That's great news. But for anyone in HR or finance, that great news comes with a giant headache. How on earth do you structure their pay so that it's compliant in both France and the US, while also being totally fair and understandable for the employee? It's a tricky puzzle for sure.
Okay, before we dive into the different solutions, we need to understand the most important piece of the puzzle. It's called the salaire de référence, or the reference salary. Just think of this as the anchor. It's the one single gross salary figure, in euros, that everything else, and I mean everything, is going to be based on, no matter which path we take.
So with that reference salary in our back pocket, we come to a fork in the road. There are basically two distinct paths a company can take to set all this up. Now, both paths are trying to get to the same destination, a correct, compliant paycheck. But believe me, the way they get there is completely different.
Let's head down path number one. We're going to call this the split pay scenario. And honestly, the name kind of gives it away. This approach is often seen as the more direct, more straightforward option, where you literally split the payroll duties between the two countries.
So here's how it works. In this model, the employee's French employment contract stays totally active. They're still on the books in France. Their main salary, based on that reference salary we talked about, keeps getting paid in France, and the company pays all the French social contributions right there. At the same time, a new U.S. contract is created, mostly for visa and legal reasons. And then, all the U.S.-based stuff, like a housing allowance, a company car, you name it, gets paid directly in the U.S. It's a pretty clean split.
Okay, so that's the split pay model. Now let's back up and take that other path at the fork in the road. And this one is a whole different ballgame. It introduces a much more complex idea called shadow payroll, and it changes the entire dynamic.
And here is the absolute most critical difference. You really got to catch this. In the shadow payroll scenario, you basically hit the pause button on the French contract, and most importantly, the French salary. The employee's pay slip in France will literally show pay à zéro, pay at zero. Yep, no actual money changes hands in France. It's a complete flip from what we just saw.
And you're probably thinking, wait, if the pay is zero, why even run a French payroll at all? And that, right there, is the genius of the shadow payroll concept. It's like a ghost payroll. It's a non-cash process that just runs in the background in France. Its one and only job is to do the math, to calculate and track all the necessary French Social Security contributions to keep the employee in the system, even though their real paycheck is coming from the US.
This ghost process then kicks off a pretty cool three-step dance to figure out the US salary. First, the company calculates a theoretical French net pay. They pretend to pay them, subtracting what the taxes would have been. Second, they take that imaginary net amount and convert it into US dollars. And finally, and this is the really clever part, they gross up that US dollar amount. That means they build a new US gross salary that's big enough to cover all the US taxes and deductions, so the employee ends up with the exact net pay they were promised.
Whew, okay. We've walked down both paths separately. Now, let's do the most useful thing we can. Put them side by side. This is where the choice between them really becomes crystal clear. Let's just run through this. It makes it so simple. The French contract, active with split pay, but suspended with shadow payroll. The French pay, they actually get paid in France with split pay, but it's zeroed out with shadow payroll. And the US pay, with split pay, it's just for the extras, the allowances. With shadow payroll, it's the whole shebang, salary and allowances. And finally, those social contributions are handled by a live payroll in one and that ghost shadow payroll in the other. See, the differences are pretty stark. You know, when you boil it all down, the decision is actually pretty fundamental. The real choice you're making is this. Do you want to keep the French payroll engine running and paying out the salary? Or do you want to switch it off, suspend it, and move the employee's entire financial center of gravity over to the United States?
And that, of course, leaves us with the final question. Look, neither of these models is inherently right or wrong. They're just different tools for different strategies. The best choice really depends on your company's structure, what your long-term goals are, and frankly, what you're able to handle administratively. So, which model is the right fit for your global mobility strategy? Now that is the puzzle you get to solve.